What is happening, everybody, and welcome back. It is a bright and hot sunny Saturday, and I am your resident YouTuber, Lumberjack Chase, because apparently I think it's smart to still have a beard in the dead of summer, which has been challenging, but I'll get around to trimming it up one day. But I wanted to talk about these two stocks that had really nice runs, but then a lot of bashing and just toxic nature came out of it, and I'm not sure exactly what happened or what stemmed from it, but guys, we got to do better. We just, as I say, quote unquote, OTC was dead for a while. We didn't have a lot of volume, we didn't have a lot of catalysts, a lot of runners, and then finally we start getting some momentum on several stocks, and then all of a sudden this hate and this bashing comes out, and I didn't get involved in it because, I have a 9-year-old I have to deal with. I don't need to deal with a bunch of other people screaming, this is a scam, that's a scam, and, this is going to take forever, and this has notes and everything else. So we don't have to dissect every single stock we're swinging. There's a lot of people that are investing these long term. So I'm sure a lot of people got irritated from the whole Asta versus Gegi thing last week in the polls. But I wanted to come on here and say, guys, we got to do better, because as soon as that started happening, you all of a sudden you'll see, FinTwit or StockTwits or whatever it is start to go quiet. So when that happens, then less people, they'll either pull their money out or they'll say, I'm not dealing with this, I'm going to sell, even if they feel conviction in that stock. So, between Asta, it's a completely different stock. And it had a great move. When they first talked about their shareholder call, 002, and it's just been climbing up into, into the 60s. And then, had a big red dip. And that could be because people are tired of dealing with it. And then, but it needed to cool off anyways. You could see the RSI was running hot, but, right down, it's funny if you see this, right now it's back down in the 50s. So, they had mentioned that they're going to have more communication going forward, which is great. And personally, I think it's a nice concept. They have their IPs, their tech, their software, their apps, and everything else they're creating. So I don't understand why, this happened, that happened. Then you talk about GEGI, which had an incredible run as well. Look, RSI is about to say about 56. It was pretty hot for a while. It cooled down. As you can see now, it has support around 0037. But, it's just the back and forth. Like, I had lots of friends in both stocks, whether it was Asta or Gegi, and then they kept going back and forth, arguing with each other. Like, it's not a competition. I know there's a lot of egos in the OTC markets and penny stocks. I don't know why, because, it's a speculative trading. But, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not here to really give you financial advice. Just say, like, these could have volume coming into this. This could be a good trade and so forth. But I just want to say, this whole Asta versus Gegi thing, if we move on from it, everybody can be happy, and then we can really continue the volume into penny stocks and OTC. If not, it's probably going to go back to where people go back to trading small caps and options, which I can do as well. No biggie, but I just wanted to say, come on, we can do better. Am I right? So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Hopefully we can move on from it. Hopefully everybody in the Asta Gegi family and the shareholders, investors can handshake and say, hey, you're right. I like your stock. Hey, I like your stock. Maybe grab a beer, high five, and let's move on. So let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is actually not a penny stock. I know, call the National Guard, what is happening? But no, I do want to start covering more small caps, especially small cap swings, ones that have news, data catalysts and so forth, because those print money as well. So it's always good to be active and, looking at different things. But it's actually BDTX. And, they had a pretty nice run into $7-8 from, what was it, a couple dollars, back in June when they announced their phase 1 for their lung treatment. And, they'll have an update on that going, in the fourth quarter of 2023. But what was big is, they did have an offering, which did kill the share price when it was up in the $7-8 range. We were thinking, hey, this thing, might have that $7.50 to $10 range, but, they had an offering, was it like, $75 million at $5 a share, whatever it was. So it kind of bled down, trading around $4 for a little bit, had a couple pops, but, if you look at the chart, it's still showing a downtrend, but that might be broken. So they actually on Friday, yesterday, had Form 4 after hours. The director, purchased, what was it, $5 million worth of shares at $5. So if you're thinking about that, and this kind of reminds me of a stock recently that was sympathy to news, and it was VKTX, which was another bio, and this thing went $3-4 up to like 20s. And you know, it's funny because, you know, I know a few of us were like, well, hey, it's just sympathy, let's buy a few puts on this, you know, it's going to go back down, it's going to fill the gap. Nope. That thing just trucked all along, so you know, that was a big L, but we all sit back and laugh about it just because it just never stopped. So, you know, if the director of the company is buying $5 million worth of shares at $5, and the stock's currently, you know, did have a pop after hours of you know, about 475, like that could be a good swing, especially going into fourth quarter. You know, with these bios, they tend to get walked up pretty hard. So it's definitely one I'm watching. It might be exciting next week, especially with that buy. I mean, that's a huge buy, you know, big confidence, especially since we are currently under, you know, that $5 mark now. So probably going to be swinging that one myself, but just want to bring that one to your attention. Second one I'm going to talk about is HIRU. So the thing I like about this one is beyond the chart is, you know, when dilution finally ended, we talked about this. We covered this thing back, I don't remember, it was February, March. It was like 0015, 17, and it's just been trucking along. But it's a slow grinder. So, you know, as you can see, once it hits resistance, comes down, legs up, resistance come down, and then, you know, it's pushing through now as we had that resistance up here, 0048. And that's like yearly resistance, so it just made new highs. But as you can see, accumulation is really strong, so I'm really liking this one. And, you know, as I put here, you know, they talked about the third quarter, they're going to announce new customers that are going to continue revenue. But, you know, a couple months ago, they talked about buybacks every single month. And then as they stay here, you know, they were buying back shares all of June. Well, guess what? They haven't started buying back shares yet in July. So I'm anticipating to see, you know, companies start buying back this week, which could really help push us, you know, up into these 50s. But this chart, I mean, it's magnificent. It's great to look at. So I just wanted to cover that one real quick. We've been talking about HIRU all year, and it's been a slow grinder, but, you know, I know a lot of longs are becoming very happy because they invested heavily when it was down here when we originally talked about it. Second one I'll talk about is CAVR. So they announced last week, you know, that they had the biggest shareholder, you know, news in the history of the company, and, you know, it was going to be increased shareholder value and so forth. And I've talked to a few people that, you know, I guess I've talked to IR or, you know, just been following the company regularly, and they said this thing is going to have a very big summer into fall into winter. So it's one I'm going to keep monitoring and keep watching. But as you can see, you know, it broke out of here. It had that resistance up here at 009, had a nice little flag going, boom, popped out. And that's just because of this tweet, you know, the saying it's going to be massive news, it's coming, it's coming. Well, then they hit it with, hey, it's coming Monday. So I'm very interested to see what it's going to say, if it's going to have any forward events of what they're working on. It may keep running. You might get a sell the news event. You know, it's hard to say nowadays, but it also depends on the news. We have no clue what it's going to be, but it sounds big. So I just had to cover. I was like, you know, keep an eye on this thing because, you know, if it does get a dip, it might get a dip and rip. It might just completely rip. You know, if they announce that they're going to be uplisting, they're going to have an S1 spinoff. Who knows? We have no idea. So just keep your eye on that one and see what the news is next week because, you know, if it does have a flush, maybe it'll get a cheap price or it may rip and everybody has a great trade out of it. So whatever, we'll see. Next one is EPAZ, favorite of mine. So if you look at this chart, we've covered it several times this year. It's an ATM machine. You know, when it flags channels, has catalyst, boom. Channels, catalyst, boom. You know, has its downtrend. Hey, here's more news, boom. But now it's been on this downtrend for quite a while, and it just broke that downtrend because they announced here that they're going to have forward-looking events starting very soon. So just keep putting that nice hammer and then, you know, kind of push up through. So if this thing does push into like mid-60s, you know, it could make that nice penny run again. But we also don't know what they're going to be talking about. So if it has anything to do with those drones they talked about before, the government, you know, as far as the Air Force and so forth, if they have an update on that with another data catalyst, might be a really good trade out of it. But, you know, it did break that downtrend, so I'm definitely watching this one hard again. This is an interesting one. MIKP, I call it MIKP, Mike the Productions. So I know they talked about a while, SEC filer, that they were trying to get out of expert market. And the thing I like about this one, you know, growing up, you know, I was always into video games, Star Wars. You know, I've always been, you know, I'd say a kid at heart. You know, my kid, you know, he collects Pokemon, plays video games, the whole nine. So, But, as far as comic books and storytelling and so forth, they've been behind a lot of the Elvira productions, which is really cool. Grew up with those comics. So there's not much of a chart to show. It did come out of expert market, and it's been kind of channeling, holding this, I'd say 009, 0010 range. I haven't seen anything wick below into the 8s or 7s yet. But they do have a catalyst coming up that I want to listen to. That way you can find out a little bit more about the company. And, it could start to leg up and turn into that catalyst. So I'll put it here. So this is actually from Cornerstone Marketing Discord. And I'll link his Twitter and his, well, I won't link his Discord, but you can find it on the Twitter. But they have a shareholder call in their Discord Tuesday, July 5th at 1:30 Eastern. And it says, they're going to be talking about, as far as marketing and what's it where you're not going to win misses in Vampirella, but just go to show you. And then here's Cornerstone here. They're going to talk about the movies, the TV series, silver screen, the projects, where they're heading, future IPs that are being acquired. So, as far as acquisitions. And then, go up here, and this is their Twitter here. So if you want to go ahead and follow them, you can jump in their Discord, listen to the shareholder call. Because I think I like niche companies that are different. They're not oil, they're not gas, they're not this, they're not building drones. It's something different. It's something that they're going to have acquisitions, and it's in trips. So, decent share structure, trips, niche company, those ones can really make big runs, if shareholders get behind them. So definitely going to check that one out. So just remember, it's coming up, was it a couple weeks now? But this is one that really took me by surprise because, QIND, who, has a relationship with ILIS, they in points, basically this PR came out, and I thought this thing was going to be $1 when I looked at it. I didn't have position. And it says, Points Investment Bank files preliminary Schedule 14C investment statement and provides S1 filing update. So I'm like, oh, S1, are they uplisting? I haven't been following it too closely. So, when you go through and read it, and, they talk about the process, the investment bank that they're going to announce after the S1 registration statement. Then I saw this, reverse stock split, and, talk about here that it's going to be, upwards of a 1 to 20, it could be 1 to 10 depending on the share price. And I was like, okay, this thing is uplisting to New York Stock Exchange. That's awesome. But then I looked at the chart, and the sell-off was just made no sense. Okay, because everybody that I know that has been in the stock forever is very long on this company. They see a great, bright future going to New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, wherever it may be. And I looked down and it hit 15 cents. And I was like, I could not believe it. I was like, I didn't want to grab any yet. I was like, okay, let me settle. I'm going to grab some the very next day. If it's 15 again, because, once people start to process that and they're like, hey, wait a minute. Like, okay, we are doing a reverse split, but it's not like one of those like trips reverse splits where they're going to reverse split to dilute all the way down and just kill the share price and then do it again, or serial diluters. Like, they have a vision. They're filing an S1. They're going to New York Stock Exchange pending the approval, through their auditors and, so forth, the investment bank and everything like that. So then I look back, and I it took me a little while to read it, and just going through everything what they want to process. They're talking about the period and how long it's going to take, and the S1 and the shareholder value is their top priority. I couldn't believe it. So I know, like, Tigress, she actually tapped me on the shoulder. She's like, hey, QIND is like 18 cents, you should grab some. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I got distracted doing who knows what else. I don't know, playing AMD or something. And then, of course, she sends me the little, I told you so gif a week later, because now the stock's 33 cents. And that's one thing we always talk about, especially in OTC market, is opportunity. Like, you always have your eyes out, low bids in, whatever would happen. But, just looking at the chart, and look, this thing ripped, because their tweet here, they filed, they're getting ready to file the S1. They're going to announce the banking, the investment banker out of New York, that's going to basically back it. So if all else goes well, this thing, and they have a date for the uplist, this thing is going to be a monster. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take. So S1 could take a couple months, but they talk about the roadshow. So as soon as the S1's filed, they have their date to New York Stock Exchange. The roadshow's done. I'd say maybe late third quarter, fourth quarter of this year. So they'll probably provide updates on that. But if this thing comes back down, like, I'll probably grab some here, because just look at where it came. It was making higher lows all year. So when you look at the 20s, okay, and it did, what a double tap here down at 25 range, and it climbed back up, and then had the double top up here. It's like, what? 62 cents, and then you were able to get a 15 cents, and now it's back up at 33, which still can be good. But the only thing that could be a downside is if it doesn't, the S1 doesn't get approved, or as far as the audit, or they have issues, and you could have that downtrend again. But I thought it was an incredible move. I saw on Friday because of that one tweet, and this thing is a low float. What is it, 20 million float, 20 million OS float. I know the market cap's a little bit bigger because a lot of it's locked up and preferred, but yeah, I mean, what a move that was on Friday. Completely missed it. So I hope that gets back on track for everybody that's in QIND, and I hope all else goes well. For their S1 and their uplist. But yeah, I'll definitely be tracking this one a little bit further as they go through their approval process and they get that date. Because once they get that date for uplist, monster coming. I mean, it's going to climb so fast, so hard that people probably won't even be able to catch it. So I just wanted to cover those with you guys today. Definitely going to be watching BDTX. Insiders buying $5 million worth of shares at $5. Yeah, I could grab under that, no problem. HIRU, beautiful chart. Lots of catalysts coming. They talked about, as far as they're going to be audited, financials coming, new customers, higher revs. Great company to get behind. CAVR. Big news next week. Let's see if we get a sell the news event or it explodes and just keeps going. We get some consolidation and start moving back up. And then EPAZ, Money Machine. Let's see when they announce what they're going to be announcing. I'm sure it's going to be sometime next week. I hope they put some dates with it saying, hey, yeah, the end of July or, first week in August, because that's when you can really get that climb. And then MIKP, Mike the Productions. Definitely look at that one coming up in 2 weeks. Listen to the shareholder call, see what they have to provide, see what kind of acquisitions they have, how long it's going to take, and what they're going to be branching into. And then, of course, QIND, awesome move off bottom. Go through, read the PRs, follow them on Twitter, and then, we'll catch it on the next one. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.